You are listening to the Dominance Academy podcast, the premier enclave for those who seek mastery in the arts of traditional relationship dynamics and the arcane knowledge of unlocking true leadership. We will explore the influence of desire, the mysteries behind polarity, the darker pathways of intimacy, and now your host, Mr. Justin.
Good evening. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin. And this evening, we're going to be talking about leading and and a few other key components to leadership. So yeah, I appreciate everyone. What's up, King Solo Power? Appreciate everyone coming through on the replay, and for those of you who come through on the live stream. So yeah, I was inspired to do this. I was inspired to do this stream by my girlfriend, my submissive, wonderful woman, and she and I were having a discussion, and we were talking just about leadership and the qualities about following and all the things that are. What's up, J98? And all the various aspects that come into play when it comes to leading and following and obeying rules and submission, resistance, independence, that sort of stuff. And I see that a lot of guys, they will complain. They'll complain heavily about a woman's pride. They'll complain heavily about a woman's ego, her sense of independence, how she doesn't need a man, and just overall toughness, resistance to submitting to a guy. And I get that. I get that to a certain extent because we learn how to behave. We learn how to live in life. And the thing is that, you might come across somebody and, say this woman, she comes across a guy, she might like him, but on her end, maybe she's got trust issues. She's got things going on inside her that she's learned over the years that keeps her safe. And the thing is, though, is that one has to let go of these things. And if they've had a taste of it in the past, either a long time ago or not so far in the past, where they've been able to release some of that protection, where they can release some of the pride, the ego, the self-preservation, whatever else is going on in there to kind of keep her safe and aligned. And so she knows that the other side exists. She knows that there's freedom. She knows that there's peace, there's relaxation. But it's interesting because it's sort of like a double-edged sword. The type of release, because when a woman releases the things that she's kept up around her heart, the things that she's kept up around her mind, the vulnerability can almost be crushing. There's a sense of falling and wanting to be caught. So there's a bit of danger. There's this sense of danger when that happens. So in order to prevent that from happening, this is where leadership comes into play. This is where being a trusted source of stability comes into play. And this can be certainly frightening for women, and if you're not used to it as a man, if you're on the other side of it and you're not used to it, and a woman gives herself to you, like this is what happens like with a lot of young guys. A lot of young guys, like early in years, I remember back in high school, you know, my first girlfriend, and she gave her complete self to me. And it was something I didn't know what to do with. And perhaps she didn't know what she was getting into either. She was just naturally allowing herself to just open up and be with me. And very fully, okay? It wasn't just sexual or anything like that. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know that I had to lead. And I think that a lot of guys don't know that they have to lead. And even those of us who are in leadership positions, it doesn't mean that you're going to do it perfectly all the time. And that's part of leading. Because if you already know everything, that means you're not growing. And if you're not growing, that means you're stagnant. Because this is a never-ending process. The process of being a man, the process of coming into yourself. You're never getting to 100% grounded in this, because there's always another level that things can firm up. There's always more. There's always more to learn. There's always more to grow. There's always more to let go of. And so this is the path of man. And I would probably say the same for women, but I can't speak for them because, you know, I'm not a woman. But I can imagine that on their end, in their way, that the path is endless, that there is just layer upon layer upon layer as you go along. The thing is, though, is that it only works if you're open to it. It only works if you allow your ego to have these experiences where, yeah, you're gonna get smacked around a little bit. Your ego is gonna take a hit, and it's not going to feel good. It's going to, it's gonna be off because you're not used to it. It's not like you go through your everyday life having your ego, you know, punched in the chest. It's just not a normal thing that you go through on a day-to-day. So when you come into these scenarios within relationships where your ego is challenged, and you have to look at yourself and say, I've made a mistake. You know, whether it's the man or the woman, it's out of place because you don't have daily practice in this. You have daily practice in keeping yourself safe, but it's a challenge when you're keeping yourself safe from yourself, when you're keeping yourself safe from the person that you're with. And so this is the challenge, because when you start going deep, you come into these scenarios more frequently than, say, if you're just kind of having one night stands or, you know, fucking random girl every now and then. Like, you're never really gonna get into anything truly deep. Yes, you can open up your heart, you can open up your mind, but you're never really going to go very deep into each other's psyche. Okay, you're never going to go deep into each other's spirit and see what lies in the shadows. And that's where the real growth is. The real growth is within the shadows, not in the light. The light's easy. You can see everything clearly, you know? But it's in the shadows where you can't really see. That's where the growth is. And so it takes a certain element of courage when entering these things. And if you are the leader, as the man, you can't be afraid. You have to be the example, because what example would I set if, say, my ego, if I knew that I had, say, made a mistake and I was guarding my ego and pretending like I can never, ever, ever make a mistake. That's going to show her by proxy that it's okay for her to behave the same way. Okay? And ultimately what that does is it drives down trust. So when trust gets driven down, okay, and she looks at you as someone who can't entirely trust you, then there's a certain element that's still protected. and she cannot open up to you and then she's like, well, what am I, I might like follow you, but maybe I'll be 6 feet behind you or 8 feet behind you, right? When a woman's very trusting of you, she's standing right behind you, right? Almost mirroring your walk. You can imagine, you've seen that in funny movies or cartoons where the person's like hiding behind them and their chest is touching the person's back and they're walking in the same step as the other person. Like, that requires a lot of trust because the person behind them can't see. The further back they go, the more you can see, even though there's a person in front of you. Okay? So it's like when the trust is not there, then that person gets further and further away. They can still follow you, but there's going to be distance. There's going to be a safe distance. Okay? And some relationships can carry on this way forever. They might last forever in this state where things just get comfortable in this way. They feel okay and they just get used to it. Why? Because humans are incredibly adaptive to their situation. That's why we're here. We're very, very good at adapting to our circumstances. And that includes our emotional circumstances. So we might go through an entire relationship of, 10, 20, 30 years or whatever. And the person who's following is 25 feet back. You can still see the person clearly, right? You can see them from behind, but you're 25 feet away and you can keep that up for years and you're just okay with it. And they think that like this is a normal, healthy, functioning relationship. And it's functioning, sure, but is it progressing? Is it going deep? Okay. So the degree of which she is following you is in direct alignment to the degree that she trusts you. Okay. And you'll see this, like a good indicator of this, because here's the thing. A lot of women are going to have trust issues, especially if she's not fucking 18. Okay. They've been around the block. They've had certain experiences and, sure, you shouldn't have to pay for the sins of a man that came before you, but that's life. Okay. She can't just drop everything and be this perfectly vulnerable, open, willing, and happy person, just because you showed up. Okay. That's just not realistic. What's realistic is that people carry their trauma with them. People carry their fears with them. People carry their discomforts with them and their preferences and their limits and all that stuff. Okay? Because it's all an effect of self-preservation that is learned through having terrible experiences. Having expectations broken, having their hopes just, pulled away from their feet. Or just truly terrible things, right? And, stuff we're not allowed to talk about on YouTube. So all of these things really, really drive down trust. So even when you show up and let's say, the guy is like 100%. I mean, this guy is solid, like down to the core. There is nothing like, his growth is like just little bits of refinement, If she's got her high levels of trust issues, there's still going to be a challenge. Okay. But that's usually not the case. Usually, us humans, we have things to work on. That's part of the joy and the pains of being a human. Okay. Life would be pretty damn boring if we were perfect. We might not even exist if we were perfect. Okay. So it's both a blessing and a curse, this existence we have here, but I wouldn't trade it up for anything. That said, it's really, really important that that you guys understand how your words and your actions play a serious role in how you affect a woman's trust. And, one of the key things in that is consistency. And so you can say or do one thing, and if it falls short somewhere, and you don't do what you say, or you change what you say, or you do something unexpected, without like communicating, so you're switching things up without saying, hey, I'm switching things up. This disrupts trust, because trust, the foundation of trust, is consistency. Okay? Like I've brought up this analogy before. Like if I were to, give you a chair, and it's the first chair I've ever made, and you know that I've got no experience or knowledge with making chairs, and you're looking at it, you're like, it looks like a chair, but you might be a little bit reluctant to sit in it. Okay? Versus if I had a whole warehouse full of chairs, and people have bought them, and like I've got sales receipts, and a whole website and the whole thing, and there's commercials and all this stuff, like you'd be a lot more trusting, because I've got a consistent track record of producing chairs that can be sat in, and they're not going to fall apart when you sit in them. So I give you this chair, and you sit in it, and it like cracks and falls apart the second you sit down. Okay? A week later, I give you another one. You might try it, but you're going to be really doubtful at this point. You're going to be like, gosh, I don't know. Like that last one, I was not expecting that, and it fucking sucked. Okay? Maybe you try it out, and like maybe it doesn't break all the way. Okay? And this is how like trust is built. So on one hand, you have to be consistent. And on the other hand, someone has to give you a shot. Like that's really, what it comes down to. Unless you've got the whole thing, you can just throw open the door to the warehouse and click on the commercials, and you can sit in them yourself, and they don't even need to sit it themselves. But that's just not realistic. All right. Usually, person on one end has to give the other person a shot, and the other person has to do their best to be consistent. And that's just the way it works. Like, this is life. But this is a sort of thing that you have to do your best at. Because the thing is here, there's like a long ongoing debate of whether leaders are born or they're created. Okay, I'm in the understanding that there are some people who might have they might have an inclination towards leadership, but I don't think there's any people who are totally born leaders. I really don't think that's possible. Okay, because part of leading has to do with interacting with the other. And so you learn leadership through experience. You learn leadership through that interplay of leader and follower. So the thing is that this is a pretty hot track I found. Anyways, I think for the most part, I think leadership is created. I think it's a skill that's learned. I think that it's something that's developed. And so if it's something that's developed, and it's something that, if part of manhood is ongoing, that means you're constantly going to be refining. It means you're constantly going to be, stepping something up, and then realizing that you've got a lot more work to do. There's another level above you. And this is ongoing until you die. And the other part is that realizing that you don't have all the answers. You really don't. Because that would require you knowing everything of life. Everything. To be a leader that doesn't need to learn, right? A leader that doesn't make mistakes. So no matter how good you are, there's always more. And this is something that I learned a long time ago when I was a young teen studying martial arts, and I was pretty good. and I was pretty good, and I was doing well in the tournament circuit, and my teacher pulls me over, and it was time for my black belt test. And his version of the black belt test was to go to the world championships in at the time it was in New Orleans. And this was long before the big flood storm that hit down there. So he's like, okay, this is your black belt test. And, you know, it's the day of, we're very early in the morning, we're getting ready and stuff. And he's like, Justin, you got to understand. And this is the biggest tournament I've ever been to when I was a kid. I was like maybe like 15 or something like that. And he says to me, Justin, just realize that no matter how good you are, there's always someone better. Always. And I got to that tournament, and I did my best. I did all right overall in my age group and my rank. I think I was like 13th in the nation, which is not bad considering there were like hundreds of people there. But I got my clock cleaned. In the sparring, I got beat out really bad in the forms. Weapons, I did pretty good. But yeah, it was a huge wake-up call. But I take that with me because the reason why he had that for my test was humility. It was to bring me down a step and say, hey, you're good, but you don't know everything. You can't do everything. And there's people that are much, much better than you. So it's not something, when you realize this, it's not something to tuck your tail between your legs, you know, and this is what a lot of guys do. And what is that? That's ego. Okay. When you tuck your tail between your legs, that is your ego. That is a soft form of deviating from conflict. And so you don't have to deal with what needs to be taken care of. Okay. If you pull your ego out of it, you're not going to feel bad. You just be like, oh shit. Like, you know what? Objectively, there are things I need to work on. And you're not going to feel bad about it. You just look at it and say, okay, this is what I need to do. Okay. And when you look at it that way, it's not that big of a deal. Things don't, it just doesn't matter all that much. But that's usually not how guys go about it, you know. And I noticed that with my coaching when I'm pointing out guys the errors that they're making in their communication, the errors that they make in how they think to themselves and how they communicate with themselves. It's it's something that I see coming up in my training, and I'll say something that exposes them to themselves, and they'll feel bad. They're like, oh man, you know? And it's like, well, if you were fucking top of your shit, you wouldn't even fucking be here, right? So don't feel bad that you realize you have something to work on. It's counterintuitive, right? Because all that does is it slows your progress. When you're like, oh man, I'm shitty, like I'm not as good as that guy, or I'm not as good as I should be, or, you know, like that's not gonna work. And that's really not gonna work in your relationship, you know. What's up to the fellas in here? I see a couple people. Mitch, good to see you, man. Boxing Plug Dave, yeah, good to see you, Boxing Dave. But yeah, you know, it's really imperative that guys don't get on themselves. And could you imagine being in a relationship? Could you imagine being in a relationship and she's looking to you for leadership? And let's say you made a wrong turn, or let's say you made a mistake, or let's say you forgot something, whatever it is, okay? And this is going to happen, right? You're not a programmed robot, okay? You're going to make a wrong turn. You're going to forget something. You're going to break something. Sometimes her heart, okay? And that's just what happens sometimes. Because you're not a robot. You're human. But the difference is how you handle it, okay? A leader doesn't take the mistakes and gets down in the dumps, starts shitting on themselves, starts feeling bad because what? You want her to rub your back and make you feel better? Oh no, it's okay. It's okay you led me astray. It's okay that you broke my heart. It's okay that you confused the hell out of me. It's okay that I got frustrated because, this or that or whatever. And here, let me make you some cookies. She's not going to do that. Right? Because it's not a job. That's not what a receiver does. Okay? And women are receivers. Okay? So it's up to you to knock it down on yourself and not kick yourself, because that halts progress. It's when you can look at your situation and go, okay, I realize I broke my patterns. My consistency is off, or it's wavering, and it needs to be back on track without even a pinch of emotion, because it doesn't do anything for you. Your emotions don't really serve you all that much. Okay. Now, of course, you wouldn't be a complete human without them, but when it comes to making decisions, I can't think of a single decision that my emotions had the best advice. Okay, I can say like maybe they would weigh in and maybe come in as a factor that I might consider, but I can't imagine even like importance, something of importance, an important event or an important decision where I relied on my emotions to make that choice for me. I can't even think of a single one. If you can think of one, just put it in the chat where your emotions were allowed to make an important decision for you. I can't imagine that shit. So the same thing applies to yourself. Same thing applies to yourself. So so it's all mirrored. So if you've got say an important decision or important strategy to figure out, you've got some sort of arduous task. If it makes sense to not use your emotions there to figure that out, okay? Why do so many guys apply it to themselves? Where they've got something internal to sort out, all of a sudden your feelings are really important. Make that make sense. Right? They're not that important when it comes to this sort of thing. Because, and namely, I'm not saying that your emotions aren't important, but it's for the sake of realizing that your emotions are not going to play a vital role in solving the problem, in creating a solution. Okay? The way I see it, regarding like a guy's feelings, is you see like a crew on a submarine, all right? There's a lot of people doing different shit to keep that thing safe underwater, like miles down. There's one dude, or maybe a couple guys, and they're on the sonar, okay? And they got the headphones on, and they've got that screen, and it's got the green thing going around, and it goes boo, boo, right? That's how I kind of see emotions. Like I'm the submarine, and inside me is all the different crew with all their different responsibilities, and there's one guy who's got that sonar, okay? And maybe it's because it makes a special noise that emotions get some kind of like major attention over other aspects and characteristics of yourself. But I don't know why. But if there's something going on, the captain will utilize some of that information that the sonar guy is giving him. Okay? But decisions aren't based completely off of what that dude says, because the dude at the sonar station is not privy to everything else. He's not privy to what the captain's plans are. Okay? Sometimes you take heed to that thing on the sonar, and sometimes you don't, because that's just what captains have to do sometimes. So yeah, maybe sometimes your decisions and the way you lead is going to go in line with how you feel, and sometimes it's not. But either way, it's irrelevant, right? Because the choice can go like in one direction, and whether it's accompanied by your feelings or not accompanied by your feelings, it doesn't change the trajectory of that choice. I hope that makes sense. Man, I feel like I smoked weed today. I didn't even smoke weed. But like I've got like a cottony mouth. It's weird. But anyways. So yeah, that's the thing about leading, you know. And the bizarre thing is that like guys want to be in this position so bad. I hear it so much. The guys want to be in the position of leadership. And you know, because you don't hear about the middle stuff. Okay? You only hear about the end results. You only see and hear about the you know, the sexual obedience and the you know, the lovey-dovey stuff and the, you know, doing fun things together and the servitude and that kind of joyous thing over there. Okay? Like all that fun, sexy stuff. Like that's what's seen and heard and talked about. Okay? So guys who don't have that, obviously they're going to just look at it and go, man, that looks great. Or that sounds great. I want that. Okay? And it's not like those things suck. It's just that it comes with so much other stuff that involve yourself that you have to constantly be thinking about and acting upon and speaking upon, that it kind of cancels out the ability to attach to those other great things. I mean, you still recognize them, but you cannot be immersed in them as deeply as you would if you weren't aware of all the things that you had to be responsible for. So they kind of cancel each other out. It's almost like, you know, guys who have like these great businesses, and someone might look at their business and go, man, you've got just such a great business. Like you've got chains going on, you know, whatever. There's a lot of different locations. You're making great money. You've got 4 houses, you know, a few cars. Your wife looks great. You got some kids. They're all going to private school. Damn, like that looks great. But you don't see the back end. The back end that he's been doing for years and years and years and years and years. Okay? The same shit again and again and again, while also trying to up and improve what he's doing. Okay? All that grit and grind and hard work and focus and, you know, sleepless nights or waking up at really freaking early hours of the day just so they can fit in more hours to work. Okay? And keeping that drive, that hunger for that long, it kind of cancels out the things that come as a result of it. And it's not to say that they don't enjoy these things, that they don't appreciate their wife and their homes and their kids and all the fun stuff that they've got, but it's different. It's different than if like you were just given these things, right? You'd be in like party mode, right? You'd be super happy and just, you know, whatever. Like these guys, it's just kind of zeroed out. It's in the middle, right? It's not negative. It's not positive. It just is, right? And that's kind of the same thing. It's like you guys want the following and all the great shit that comes from the following, but man, you're not even thinking about or understanding, which I can understand, like because you can't understand something that you're ignorant to or that you don't have enough information on. But it's not sunshine and rainbows. Because in order to have the yes sir with a smile and, you know, a warm cup of coffee being presented to you from her knees requires a bunch of stuff, a bunch of characteristics, a bunch of habits, a bunch of thought patterns that you have to develop over time to then, which is not easy. It's not like you just freaking go into Target and buy some, you know, for $12.99 and call it a day. Okay. It's something that you have to work on and create. And then there's that result. And yes, you appreciate this, right? but it's because you've worked to create these things, you know. So it like kind of prevents you from being super immersed in it, right? Because you're no longer there just to consume. Okay, and this is why I talk to my guys about this, you know, about insatiable craving. Insatiable craving is it's a big deal. It's a problem. You know, I was just talking to a new guy tonight. I was talking to a new guy tonight, and he was talking to me about he's doing really well with his dating apps. Right, he's very, very active, and he's doing well. And he was like, you know, he's proud of himself that he was able to. There was some weird communication going on with his messages, and she's not like very friendly and open and playful. You know, I kind of like that. Like when I was on dating apps, I enjoyed conversing with women who had a positive, like outgoing and open-minded attitude. Like that's one of the best qualities that a woman can have upon first meeting. Okay. And it's easy for them to be this way online, at least. Okay. Like there's no risk. But anyways, so he noticed that this one woman was not like this. She was, you know, she was guarded. She was just speaking in weird patterns. It's just hard to describe. I was looking at his screenshots and I'm like, what the hell is she going on about? Like, what is this? And she kept switching from mood, like from line to line. It was like mood. You know, like she would like ignore something and then get like defensive and then get friendly and then like say something standoffish and then give her number. It's like, girl, make up your mind. Like, do you want to do this or do you not want to do this? What? I don't understand. So he's going through this and he realizes that this is just not a good scenario. And he said that he's proud of himself, that he was able to see, you know, what really was going on. And he says that I'm proud of myself, but I've got a hunger for sex, but I won't put myself in a bad situation for it. So he's aware enough of his own, his own cravings, and that it can put him in terrible situations. But man, I can't believe how many dummies there are out there, and who get themselves in bad situations, okay, where they say impregnate a woman that they're not really interested, or they spending time and having sex with a crazy woman, or she's got a crazy ex-boyfriend or a crazy husband, okay? And if you're sleeping with a married woman, don't be surprised if he's crazy, all right? Because you shouldn't be doing that. So it's like just basically getting yourself wrapped up into these chaotic environments, and they're not possessed of leadership qualities because they're so filled with craving. Because craving and leading, they're antithetical. Okay? You cannot have discipline while also eating tons of potato chips, right? That doesn't make any sense. Like either you have discipline or you don't. Okay? So these guys who lack discipline when it comes to their cravings for sex, all right, they're the same guys who want to be leaders in relationships. They're the same guys who want women to be following them. And it's like, well, you're the creepy guy who is led by his carnal sexual desires. How is she going to follow that? I mean, the only pathway that she can follow is just giving you sex. Okay? That's it. And that's a very short pathway. Okay? It's a short pathway that you can revisit again and again and again, sure. Okay? But it's a short pathway nonetheless. So you're not leading her very far. Okay? And in my experience, yes, there's a handful of women who are just perfectly fine with that. They could give a fuck, right? And usually it's a much younger woman, say like early 20s, right? where they're just in this party lifestyle. They're easygoing. They don't really want to get tied down, none of this stuff. And they just want to have fun. That's fine. Okay. But typically, as women are getting older, they're above age 25, they don't want to have these short pathways again and again and again. For the most part, women, and even those young women in their 20s who grow up a little bit, they too want something more established, something that they can really sink their teeth into, something that makes them feel safe. Okay? Because while they're out doing this and doing that, okay, with different guys or the same guy every now and then or whatever, there's maybe 3 or 4 or 5. What this does is, in order for her to behave this way, she needs to be able to have a certain element of armor, so to speak, okay, that keeps her safe psychologically and emotionally in these situations, okay? We're just going to pretend that she's safe physically just off jump, okay? Because every woman, you know, she should be getting with a guy who's not going to abuse her. So, but she's got these psychological and emotional layers on that keep her safe, keep her guarded, keep her distanced, that sort of thing, so she doesn't get wrapped up in these things, okay? And if this gets carried on for too long, that armor almost grafts to the skin. All right, reminds me of that movie, The Man in the Iron Mask. I don't know if everybody saw that. There was like a remake. I think Leonardo DiCaprio was in it, and he was the Man in the Iron Mask. And like he was wearing the mask for so long that when he took it off, it like pulled this, like the few layers of skin off with it, because it had, the iron in his skin had just like grafted and bonded to each other. That's what can happen when a woman is in this state of protection for too long, self-protection, okay? Their natural state is not to be that, okay? As comfortable and confident and powerful that they might be in these states, and I think it's just because, well, there's no other choice, okay? So it's sort of like, if you can't beat them, join them, that sort of thing. If you can't have an opportunity to take the armor off, you embrace the fact that you have to wear it, and you own it, and you're proud of it, okay? But that's not a natural state. That's not a natural state, because it doesn't promote openness. It doesn't promote growth, because in order to have openness and growth, you must be vulnerable. You must be able to have things open, okay? Open allows information to come in so that you can learn. And then you realize that there's some parts that need to be resorted, or things that you actually are proud of that you couldn't see because you've got armor on, okay? Because the armor blocks not only the bad, but the good as well, coming from the person themselves. It's a very messed up thing to go around wearing armor, okay? So it's not the natural state for women. And so it's best. This is why it's really important for guys to understand the power, but how do I describe it? It's kind of like, I don't know, would you say a farmer has power over a farm? It's in that. It's in his nurturing capabilities, that when she feels relaxed enough, vulnerable enough, able to trust you enough, that those armors can come off. And depending on the individual, time is a factor. So some armor might come off faster than others. Maybe the helmet comes off right away, and the breastplates and the shoulder plates, they come off, and like just over time. And maybe the boots take a long time, okay? Because that's like the last bit of armor, okay? Because that's touching the ground, all right? That's kept her feet safe so she can move, right? So maybe those take a little bit longer. And that's understandable, just because that's life. So another aspect to being a good leader is not being so fucking hard all the time. All right. Yes, there's absolutely times for hardness and being firm and stern. Okay. There are times for this. And you need to have that, at least the capacity in you, the fearlessness in you to be hard when necessary. Okay. But the other side of that, okay, because we're dealing with always polarity, okay? We're always dealing with yin yang. So the other side of that is compassion. So the compassion comes in is with the understanding of where the armor came from, why it's still on. And it might not have anything to do with you. It might not. It might be a combination of those things. It's a complex thing. It's not so black and white where you're like, hey, take off those boots, right? It's not that easy. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? Either you put the boots on or you don't put the boots on. It's like, right? It's that easy, but it's not the easiest task when you've done something for a long time, and it makes you feel good in a way, makes you feel protected. Okay, perhaps learning someone else's way is not the most easy thing to do. So with your leadership and your consistency and your firmness, there's also compassion, because this is the thing that allows you to, how do I say it? Like fully see the person. Because it's not just in performance. It's understanding who's performing, who you're trying to help grow, who you're trying to help see. And part of that understanding is knowing that there's like a scared little girl in there. Like as hot as she is, as like womanly she is, as grown as she is, there's still like a hurt girl in there. There's still a scared girl in there. Okay? Like little girl. And I mean in spirit. And understanding this and knowing that archetype is very much present in her, in many women. Okay? Unless they've done a shit ton of work, a shit ton of internal work to heal that inner child. It's very rare. Okay? So this is where you come in. And I'm not saying that you need to be a woman's therapist, okay? But it's inevitable that in your leading, in your relationship, in your dynamic, emotions are going to come up. And with emotions often comes the past. Okay? Because we don't fully live in the present. We're not these, Buddhist monks who just like forever live in the moment, right? We're not that. Okay, we haven't conditioned our minds to be that way, and frankly, it wouldn't be conducive to living very well. That's why these guys have to live in a monastery, because it's like that's the only type of life you can live if you're just constantly living in the moment, is like full on as they are. As a little side note, let me just give me a second because I'm sure it's a little monkey. Okay. I knew this little monkey was going to sleep soon. All right, so there was this study done with Buddhist monks. All right, and so they had monks and they had non-monks, and they set them down. I don't know if you remember back in school, but when I was a kid, I'm 46, but I remember being in elementary school. And there was they would do like tests sometimes. Like every now and then you'd have to go to the nurse's office. They'd do a little eye test where they put the cup over your eye or the little spoon, and you read the chart with the letters. And then they did a hearing test. Okay. They would test your reflexes by banging that thing on your knee. Why? Like, what did that prove at all? I still don't understand. They take the little hammer and knock your knee and make your foot go up. It's like, what does that prove? That like that one nerve in your knee works? Okay, he's in good health. Anyways, so they get these headphones, these old 70s like big blue, like baby blue headphones, and they had this machine, and it was able to produce sine waves. Okay, so just a boo, like that sort of thing, but in different tones. And so we have within our hearing a certain range that we can hear. And during higher frequencies, the pitch gets so high, it becomes silent. It's actually the same volume as the middle ones, but it's out of the frequency, like the frequency of the wave is so tight that we can't even hear it. And the same thing happens below that frequency. It's the same volume, but we think it's quieter. It's only because the wavelength has become so long and deep that we can't hear it. Okay. So this machine was able to produce tones in these different sine wave sounds by pressing these buttons. Okay. And you'd have to like raise your hand, like which ear you heard the tone. And so they could get an idea of like if you've got good hearing. Anyway, so they had something like that set up with these monks and these non-monks. And what they were doing is they had also had those like electrodes on their head, and they were measuring the brain waves on the piece of paper that goes by with the ink that kind of goes like this. And so they're measuring the brain waves of the monks and the non-monks. And inside the headphones, they were playing a bell, right? It just go ding, right? The control group, right? The non-monks, the control group, they would hear the first bell, and the ink thing would spike really big on the paper, okay? And then it would go down, and then the bell would go again. And like the brain would spike, right? So the brain was recognizing the spike and go, wow, I can see it, like a bell, right? The brain was really acknowledging it. But they kept doing it and hitting these bells, and it would go on for like 5 minutes, okay? And after a while, that bell would cause a spike smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, because the brain started to predict that it was going to happen. And then when the bell tolled, the brain said, oh, I've heard this before. Cool. And it slowly faded into the background because you've heard it so many times. All right. Much like I'm here in New York, and it can be pretty noisy here. My brother would come to visit, he lives like way far upstate where it's nice and quiet. Like there's no noise where he lives. And he's here. He's like, I don't understand how you sleep. And I don't even notice it. I don't notice the police cars. I don't notice the crowds. I don't notice the music. I don't notice anything here because my mind is adapted to the chaos. But anyways, so they got the monks in there, and you could guess what the result was. The bell had the same bounce every single time for 5 minutes on the brainwave scans. So it was if their brain was hearing the bell for the first time every time. Isn't that wild? So they train their minds to be in the present so heavily that when they hear a bell, it's funny, the bells just ring when I said bell. When the bells ring, they're just like, whoa. And it's like their brain is surprised that it's a bell for the first time every single time they hear it for 5 minutes straight. So we're not that, okay? We're of the types that things fall in the background. So, in our relationships, because we're not so in the present, we bring the past with us. That's just what happens. A woman is going to bring her past, whether you want her to or not, whether you want her to bring it up or not. Because I've heard guys say, hey, don't talk about your past around me. And hey, you know what? If that's how you want to run your program, totally fine. I'm not judging it. Okay. What I am saying is whether she speaks on it or not, the past is always there. The past is always there. No matter what you do, you could make it a whole commandment in your relationship. Never talk about the past. Okay. And they may never talk about the past. But it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It doesn't mean that whatever effects were there haven't carried right through and are living right here, right now in your relationship. Okay? And having an effect, both consciously and subconsciously. Everything is always working all the time, even while you're sleeping. So it's... Pikachu, I just saw your message about the music. Sorry it's trying to figure out like what's good volume for this stuff. But yeah, if anybody says that, notices the music is too loud, I should like pump it down a little bit. Pardon me. So, but yeah, I appreciate the praise as well. But anyways, it like you guys, I just want to help guys understand that, yeah, you want to get into relationships, fine. But for the most part, from what I've seen, is that there's too much emphasis on just wanting the good stuff. and not taking into account what you need to put in, what you need to develop, where you need to carry things. Because this is going to make the biggest difference. It's not her that's going to make the biggest difference. It's you. It's what you do, how you think, and what you're motivated by on a subconscious level is what's going to make the difference. And if you're motivated by just getting pleasure, your pathway is like 10 feet long. That's it. If you've got emotional hangups where you're using her to feel better about yourself, your pathway is only going to be 7 feet long, if that. If you've got insecurities, if you've got fears, if you've got judgments, all having nothing to do with her specifically, stuff coming from your upbringing, from that girl that broke your heart, from the shit ton of red pill that you fucking gargled down your throat. Like, that's all on you. And it's not her job to make you feel better, to solve your problems and bring you a sense of peace. Like, it kills me when I hear guys say, a woman is supposed to be my peace. This is one of the most ridiculous things ever. However, I am a strong believer that there's lessons everywhere if you allow it to happen. Everywhere. And so this is part of the path of man as well. By developing the ability to see, the ability to hear properly. And if your ego doesn't get in the way, you can grow considerably. But it's like, if you're hung up on making sure your dick is wet. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be in a relationship where you're not having an active sex life. Of course you should. You should be having as much sex as you like. It has to do with, are you driven by this? I never have to think about sex because it's just a given. Like, why would I think about? It's like, I don't think about having food. Thankfully, I've never been a starving person. Okay. So it's not even the only time I think about it is like, well, what do I want to make for dinner? That's really it. Okay. So we don't question the things that are regular, right? They're just mainstays. We don't think about these things. So I don't really think about sex. Now, of course, that might be due to my age. If I was like 25 and, my hormones were like 4 times the amount of what they are now, sure. Okay. But that's besides the point. What I'm trying to say here is that if you've got all this shit, if you're driven by sense pleasure, if you've got all these freaking issues inside your head that you have either no courage or no knowledge of looking at, you're going to ruin things. You're going to be just another guy. Now, I'm not saying this is a guilt trip or whatever, but you're going to be just another guy that causes problems. You get it? And you could be like, well, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to go and do this stuff. Well, does that make you an effective leader if you're being that impulsive? Because guys could be like, you know what? I don't give a shit. I don't care about the next guy. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. But that doesn't exactly speak leadership qualities to me. That just says selfish, impulsive, childish, immature, self-gratifying, and short-sighted. Are those leadership qualities? Right? Leaders, we think ahead. We plan. We try to have foresight. We don't let impulses guide our decisions because that means our decisions go left and right all over the place. We keep our cravings under control. It's not easy. It's not an easy task. But that's why the pathway is not built for everybody. It's just not. And if you're not this, I hope that if you get into a relationship, that you're with a woman who's kind enough to understand that you're not that. Well, I mean, I hope that any man who gets into a relationship is with a kind woman. But let me say an understanding woman, okay? Because some women are not very understanding. Because they know what they know. And they know it because they come from a very emotional place. So when they have experienced leadership and non-leadership, it comes with a very strong feeling. And so they know exactly how it feels, right? Because imagine, I don't know how to describe it, and it's only as good as I can because I've never even been in the position before, but imagine being a prisoner of your own mind. Imagine being a prisoner of your own feelings, a prisoner of your own body. You can't actually be yourself and be free, okay? You're imprisoned. And from the outside, you look fine, okay? This is a lot of women, right? They're not able to be free. And I'm not talking about this like free to go off and be in Miami and fuck anything that they want and whatever and drink and party. That's not really being free. That's actually being a prisoner. What I mean by being free is being free from their insecurities, free from doubt, free from the chaotic hamster wheel that's just constantly flying in their head, free from their own will, free from their ego, free from their pride, free from their independence, free from any kind of a mental or emotional chaos. That is freedom. Now, if a woman's ever experienced that or a percentage of that, then they know the feeling that comes from that. And I can only imagine that it's got to be the most succulent thing that they've ever had in their life. And they also know the direct opposite. They know exactly what it feels like to be led astray, to be led to doom, to be led to sadness, to be led to disappointment, to be led to even more chaos than what they already have in their head. So they understand these feelings, okay? So when you're doing your thing, they know based upon how they feel of whether you got it or you don't. And they will behave accordingly. Now, sometimes, of course, only sometimes, they will put up a front because it's like maybe it's the only thing they got, or they're bored. Okay, this happens. Or you're the best choice of crap, right? And I'm not saying you guys are terrible. I'm just saying like you as in like a general guy in the scenario. Sometimes this will happen. Sometimes she will just get involved. And there's not going to be any fucking feelings. There's not going to be any of this like, oh my God, like I can relax, I can release, I can put down my shit. And there's not going to be, even more defensiveness and chaos. Okay? And this is where like a lot of people get stuck, man. To be honest. Like I spent a lot of time in like marriage subreddits, dead bedroom subreddits, things of that nature. And there's thousands and thousands of people in these subreddits, tons of them, and it's all the same shit. So what I'm describing here is fairly freaking common. It's fairly common, and to me, it's a disappointment, right? Because I don't like looking at bigger picture shit. I just like focusing on myself, but occasionally I'll look at the bigger picture. And things don't look good. Things don't look good at all. Birth rates, I think, are low in the US. They're already fucked in Japan. China, or no, is it China or Japan? No, China is like beyond the tipping point. Like they're basically just like a dead man walking. Because they're not producing enough young people. I think in Japan as well, they're not producing enough young people to take the place of holding up the infrastructure. So the babies that are being born, they're not growing fast enough, and they're not growing enough of them. Okay, so what I think is going to happen is robotics, just like in the movies. Like if you guys have ever seen like the Animatrix, if you haven't seen the Animatrix, go see that shit. It's dope. It's like a short series of it's a compendium of short films animated about what happened before the Matrix, like how they got to that point to begin with. And there's one segment where they talk about like basically how robotics became very easy and very sophisticated, and they replaced like pretty much every job. And like robots just did everything for us because just we were not procreating enough in order to keep the infrastructure going. And maybe that's what's going to happen. I don't know, but China's fucked. Japan's fucked. They are basically like pretty soon. I was reading this one report that pretty soon in Japan, they're going to be selling more geriatric diapers than they are baby diapers. That's fucking wild. And so I feel like we're kind of going in the same direction. And the only real way to solve this is by the only way to solve this is either by, well, embracing technology, as Mitch said here. I love the second renaissance. The ideas of it, yes, there's very interesting pluses and minuses. But that's life, you know. Every blade has dual edge. Just one of them sharper than the other. But you know, really, we might be too far past it, but it's like this great place that I live in was built on people creating families. Men and women getting together and creating families. Like that's what created all this fucking awesome shit around us. Well, a lot of the bullshit too, but you know, it's like they come in hand. It's like I'd rather have something with bullshit than nothing, right? So that's just something that I believe in. You know, I'm not all about like just men and women being single indefinitely. It does not lead to satisfaction. It doesn't lead to happiness. It really doesn't. With some people, you know, and I think I could be able, like, I'd be fine with that for a number of years. You know, probably just riding my motorcycle and traveling a lot. But it's at the same time, it's like, you know, us humans, we are social creatures. We thrive off of human interaction, like deep human interaction, not just like coming together once in a while and like, you know, sticking appendages inside holes and like that's it. All right. Like there's more to us than that. And I think that we can only be detached from one another for certain periods of time before there's some kind of effects. And I think we're starting to see these effects and in various places, you know, and oh man, I just heard like two guys ride by on a couple of sport bikes and I cannot wait to get mine out. Still a little too chilly for this old man. But anyways, yeah, the effects are being seen. There's just a lot of unhappy people. There's a lot of fucking single guys out there, 18 to 30, whatever, just not getting with women at all. This is bad. This is really, really bad. And like, yes, my heart goes out to these guys. Like, you know, that sucks to be like a grown man and to be considered fucking invisible. I'm not going to blame the women for that, but I can recognize that that's got to be a shitty situation. But it's like, man, it's just bizarre, you know, because with my age, it's like I saw like this transition, you know. I was born in the late 70s. So going all through the 80s, it's like I remember when the first camcorder came out. This thing was fucking monstrous, right? And that was a way of separating yourself from your society that you're in. It was just weird. Like you see somebody come to a party and they got this camcorder and it's like they're not there, they're stepped back, you know? And now we're at this point where we're very stepped back, right? Because now we have like these archetypes, these personas, these avatars of ourself as what you're watching right now. Like, that's not really me. That's an avatar of me. My social media, it's all avatars of me. It's not really me. And so it's like now we're just kind of like avatar interfacing, which is very weird. It's super, super detached. We're very, very far away from each other as much as we seem very connected. We're not. We're not really connected. We're very poorly connected. It might as well be those things with the cups and the string, you did when you were a kid. At least I did. If you're wondering, that actually works. Okay. So if you want to fuck around, get cups and a string. But anyways, it's fucked. And so like, I think that like the way that we can turn this around is by, people getting together. It might help. It might not save the country. That, I think, is just inevitable to fall, but we can save how we interact. The fabric of the man-woman interaction. And as some guys are going to be really annoyed to hear, and maybe they're going to, get into a little miff about it, it's your job to start it, right? Because I hear this on social media a lot, Clubhouse as well, where the guy would be like, well, I would be the leader if I could find a woman who's willing to follow, or who's submissive, or who's open-minded and vulnerable and soft, well-mannered. Then I would lead. And that's not the way it goes. Like, I understand what he's saying, but that's just not how reality works, okay? Because leading requires going first. You make the first move. You take that first step forward, then she takes the step, okay? It's not she moves and that gives you the inspiration to move. That's not how this works. That's not how leadership works. The leader steps out and then says, come on, men, follow me. And they all take their M16s and start running behind him. Like, that's how it works. So you cannot complain about the state of affairs. You can't. I mean, you could, but it's not going to do you any good. That's why I really don't talk about it much. Why I don't spend any time thinking about it. It does bother me. I don't like hearing that there's so many unhappy and single people out there. Right? Because a tremendous growth can happen in a good relationship. And I wish that every guy was able to experience this. And the sad part is that they're not. And those numbers are dropping. Okay? But it's not to sit here and go, oh, well, let's blame capitalism. Let's blame feminism. Let's blame some other ism. Okay? Are these factors weighing in? Sure. But I don't think there's any one culprit. Okay. And whether there's one culprit or not doesn't matter. What matters is that guys are still autonomous, but they act as though they're not autonomous, which is really weird. Like, that's bizarre to me. They still behave as though like some sort of eternal force has come over them and transforms them into someone who cannot have spine and balls. Like, somehow these outside forces kind of like seeped through their pores or something and turn the consistency of their spine from hard bone into something kind of spongy, and their balls sort of like shriveled up and became dry, and now you've got just like this empty, baggy scrotum. Like, how does that actually work? Okay. Like, when I hear about guys saying, well, feminism has actually feminized men. Okay. How? I really don't understand the actual technical workings of that. Okay. Is there like a brainwashing program out there? Is it in the water? Are there like internment camps? Like, what's going on? I really don't understand like how, because I've talked about this before, like with the spine and the balls. The spine consists of your principles, your values, your core values, your beliefs, your principles, your codes, your rules, everything that you stand for, that you believe in. This is what your spine is comprised of. Okay. So how does an outside, right? And these things are supposed to be immovable, right? They're like immovable truths. You know, that's what like a strongly held belief, right? These are convictions. How is it like an outside influence can change that? That would mean that you are not holding strongly held beliefs, that your codes are just suggestions. Your rules are more or less like preferences. Okay? And so you're able to be flexed. You're able to be molded, manipulated. Okay? So if that's able to happen, then I would say, well, maybe you don't really have these things in the first place. You're just kind of saying you do. Okay? And it's like, how is the information making your balls shrivel up into these dry, dusty raisins sitting inside an empty scrotum? Okay. How is that happening? Is it from the videos you're watching? Is it the music, like getting in there, like changing your subconscious and then like taking the courage out of your body, right? Because that's what your balls are made of. Your balls are made of courage. It's the will to act, the will to put the things you believe in into action, be it a vocal action or a physical action. Okay? So how is this happening? Stop blaming the outside for the inside. It's like you like go visit a friend's house, okay? And you walk in and you're like, damn, bro, you need to clean your house. And there's just shit everywhere. There's like old food, socks, laundry, there's like a pile of like old hard dog shit on the floor. Just like it's disgusting in there. And you're like, dude, why are you cleaning your house? And he's like, oh, well, because, the mayor's a Democrat. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah, he's saying all this stuff. And, it makes me feel bad because I'm not a Democrat. So I don't want to clean my house. That's what guys sound like to me. When I'm questioning their masculinity, I'm questioning their mindset, I'm questioning their spine. Their balls I don't have to question because it's apparent. And then they say, well, it's because of feminism. It's because of capitalism. It's because of politics, right? It's because of this and that and the other. It's because women aren't nice anymore. It's like, but how does that translate to your house being dirty? I don't get it. Somebody needs to explain that to me. Somebody. J98 says, there is an undercover war that is coming out to keep men and women from reproducing by keeping them in dysfunctional relationships and using them to be an example of future generations. Okay, but your dysfunction is your responsibility. This is what I'm saying. It's upon the man's shoulders. Okay? And here's the thing. Dealing with it just makes your shoulders broader. It makes them stronger to deal with more shit. Because that's part of men. We don't turn away, especially from ourselves. So if you're dysfunctional, it's like the only way that would happen is if one allowed it to happen, right? Keeping them in dysfunctional relationships. No, that's a man either being an idiot or willfully choosing chaos. This is right. This is all in the base foundational thinking about how he respects himself, how he feels about himself, what his spine is composed of. That's what this is what's all about. Because if you don't have strongly held beliefs and you don't have balls, you don't have courage, you're going to become dysfunctional. You're going to find yourself in dysfunctional situations. Because as the man who has deeply held convictions and knows what he stands for and has the courage to act on them, he's the one who takes him outside of being dysfunctional and never being in dysfunctional situations. So I don't see how there's an undercover war to keep men and women from reproducing. Okay? I mean, unless the person who's being manipulated in this way is a complete dunce. And all right, fine. There's a lot of dumb guys out there. A lot. Okay, we see it on one level in all the comment section under a beautiful woman's photo. Okay? They're morons. They're complete morons. We see it with guys who are willfully giving their dick to tons of women without haste, without any sort of decision making. If you're throwing something around for free, you're going to drop its value, right? If we all of a sudden discovered, like, newsflash, holy shit, everyone has diamonds in their backyard. Now diamonds become as common as the little stones in your backyard. That's how many there are. Their value on the market would fucking plummet. Okay? But you guys just keep throwing your dick around. Why? Because you've got insecurities. You fucking hate yourself. You have no spine. You have no balls. You have no beliefs. You have no principles. You hate yourself. You hate your life. And you just want some pussy to feel better. You just want a woman to rub your back and say, oh, baby, the world is tough, but you're with me now. You can relax. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's like a kid having a terrible day and you just give him a piece of candy to feel better. That didn't change his life at all. Okay? Now we can't expect a child to be able to change their life and make better decisions, but we sure as shit can expect a grown man to do it. A grown man is going to make decisions so that he doesn't have to live in dysfunction, chaos, pain, frustration, anger, none of that shit. We're going to make decisions to change these things and say, fuck anybody who doesn't vibe with that. That's how the family thing was. That's how, like, this, the United States started. They said, you know what, fuck you, England. I'm going to do this thing over here. Now, granted, they had to deal with an extermination of, a whole other set of people, but that's a different topic altogether. The point is the mindset, okay? The point is the mindset. When the settlers were going through and they're like, you know what? I've got my woman, I've got my fucking cow and a couple horses, and I'm just going to set up and say, fuck, this is what I got to do. Okay? It's not, don't get hung up on the specific actions. I'm talking about the mindset. The mindset behind the actions. Okay? That's saying, I'm doing what I need to do despite whatever. So I do not buy anything about some undercover thing, because what that does is it allows one to lean on excuses. This is what I was telling my son. He came to me recently and he said, Dad, I want you to put me on a workout program, right? Workout program and diet program. And I said, all right, cool, son. That's great. I'm proud of your initiative. And so we went over it and talked to him about it, what was expected of him. And he's like, okay, I'll try. I said, no, you won't. I said, what are you talking about? You're not going to try. So you're not going to try because you're either going to choose to do it or you're not going to do it. Because when you say you're going to try, what that does is it opens up a window for the possibility for failure. And then when things fail, you can give yourself a little pat on the back and go, well, at least I tried. No, you fucking failed. That's it. Either you do the thing or you don't do the thing. And when you do the thing, you possibly could succeed, you possibly could fail. If you don't do the thing, you're automatically failing because you gave up and you never tried. But there's no such thing as trying something, okay? I misspoke. You didn't do the thing and you lost because you didn't do it. That's better stated. Pardon me. So that's what I'm saying. You cannot have this like attempt sort of thing. So in the same way, when you say, oh, there's a plot, right? What it's doing is creating scapegoats. All right. The word try is a scapegoat. Saying there's a conspiracy theory is a scapegoat. Okay. Saying it's women's fault is a scapegoat. Saying it's because I had problems in my childhood, it's a scapegoat. What you're trying to do is trying to deviate the onus from you. You are the only one who can get in your own head and change the way you think, which will ultimately have a difference in your circumstances and whatever the fuck is going on. You know? But the thing is that with influence, I will give credit to things like YouTube, music, and things of that nature, because we can close our eyes. I've said this before, but we can't close our ears. So if there's anything that's kind of slightly messed up or, you know, just delivered in the right way, and yes, there's some people who are very, very strategic in the way they deliver things. It gets in the mind, and if you're weak in the mind, well, then you're going to become subject to whatever's going on. So this is why I say to you guys again and again and again, protect your mind. Don't listen to everything. Don't listen to everybody. And just because they've got fucking 540,000 followers, it doesn't mean that what they're saying is true. It might, okay? But it might not. And that's kind of how everything has to be. You have to look at it as this might and this might not. I want you to look at me this way and say, well, Mr. Justin might and he might not. And you can give it a quick go, but if I sense that this is taking me down a pathway that is not going to be fruitful for me, I'm going to ignore his ass forever. And that's what I want. I want men to be strong enough to do that to everyone. Everyone. Right? This is how you are. It's the beginnings of inner stillness. And when you have that inner stillness and it becomes still and it just kind of comes down and then settles. And it's like, if you ever see like those, you know, like a video of like an anchor dropping, or it's just something very heavy dropping through the water, and it just goes, you know, and like the sand kicks up and, you know, that sort of thing. I know you've seen videos like that of something like very heavy dropping to the bottom of the sea. That's your stillness coming to rest. And once that shit touches down, there's nothing short of a fucking earthquake that can shake it. Like the last time I remembered that I was deeply fucking shook was when my father died. That was the last time I can remember being like really shook off my square. But since then, nothing. I mean, my cat dying, one of my cats died a few years ago. That was pretty hard, but not like my dad. But it's like, you get that stillness going, nothing, but you gain the stillness by creating quiet. And if you're constantly shoving fucking social media into your fucking head, you're never gonna allow for quiet. See, that got me a little riled up. I started swearing. I never use curse words really, but it's like, if you don't take ownership of what goes in, then it's like, I don't want to hear you complain. I don't want to hear your complaints at all. Your mind is yours. You have a responsibility for it. And you cannot blame anybody about the shitty way that you think, the shitty way you feel about yourself, right? If you're being feminized by whatever the hell is going on, that's on you. If you feel like control's slipping out of your fingertips, that's on you. If you're having trouble dating women, that's on you. You know, I was recently talking with my friend Thor, and yes, that's his given name is Thor. He's in the another sect of the manosphere space, I guess. I don't really like to involve myself with that word, but he's a good friend. He's a great guy. He's into his BDSM lifestyle for many, many years. And he and I were talking about how when you're that kind of grounded, and you're that still, and you walk into some sort of, you know, public space, and there's women there, he was describing how it left a response on them. Like, they can feel somebody who's calm, right? Because women, that's one of their superpowers, is that they have the ability to, be sensory, right? That's part of their survival mechanism, because they don't have the brute strength, right? Just biology says that, hey, you're not as fast, as strong, as densely boned, whatever, okay? There's a lot of physical things that you don't have that men have. So to kind of counteract that, we're going to up all of your other things. Your softness, your ability to read situations, to feel situations, understand them on like a gut level, almost like a sixth sense, like something's going to happen, or something's cool here, or something feels good, or that feels a little off, or that's damn scary, or whatever. But nothing's visually giving any indication of that, but they can pick up on this. Okay. It's an amazing superpower. It's like spider sense, you know, like, when a man is around them that has that stillness, none of that shit goes off. And it kind of throws him for a loop. And so he interviewed me on his channel just like a day or so ago. And he was talking about his own experience in this. And he's like, yeah, when you go into places and you have that stillness, it reads weird to women. Almost like the sonar guy watching his screen, and then the blip just vanishes. And they're like, huh? Tapping on the screen, like, there's always a blip here. Why isn't there a blip? What the hell's going on? You know? And that's kind of what happens with ladies when you're in their presence, and they get no sense that you're after them for fucking, for money, for time, for possession, for you know, healing insecurities, neediness, for approval, anything, nothing, not even friendship, just nothing. It's like, they're like, wait, like you're not like the other creatures out here. Like, what species are you? And they get very, throws them off and shuts down that radar. And they take on a different demeanor. That's what he was getting at. That it shifts their demeanor, because their special tools that they've needed for so long are no longer necessary in your presence. And that's what is interesting. Okay. But yeah, he goes by, if you want to look him up on YouTube, I believe his channel is RP Thor. And, you know, we just did a little chit chat. We talked a lot about BDSM and the effects of good leadership, and the influence that it can have, you know, because it's weird. It's a weird two-way street. Like, you think like, oh, yeah, I'm the man. It's a one-way street. Okay. It's a two-way street, because you could be, if I could just put like numbers on this just to quantify it in a way so that you can understand what I'm talking about. Let's say you're at like a level 6 leader, okay? Like on your own, like you're just by yourself. You like you've had some experience. You kind of get a good sense of like, okay, like I kind of know how to lead. All right, so you're like a level 6 leader. Then you get with a woman who is, say, like she's naturally inclined towards submission. She's okay with it. She easily kind of goes in that direction, and she's supportive. She's beautiful, like all this good stuff. Okay. Now, because the way she is sort of more advanced than your leadership, like she can follow greater than you can lead. So now her ability to open brings you to greater levels of yourself, right? So this is how it becomes two-way. So now you upgraded from a 6 to an 8, okay? But it's only because she allowed herself to open, which meant you could traverse longer. I hope that makes sense, okay? So it's like, I won't go there. It's a little too sexual, but so it's like that's how your leadership can be altered by her submission. It's a two-way sort of thing, and you won't get there, you won't understand it until you're actually in these situations and you're open to it, right? I was talking about like the openness, having compassion, allowing your own ego to be examined, sometimes by her, most of the time by yourself, if you're skilled enough at it, right? You're not afraid, and which you shouldn't be because you've got balls, right? You can't be all full of balls and be afraid to self-examine, right? That means you're still a coward. Don't be a fucking coward to yourself. Like that's really, really strange. Okay. Yes. Yes, Mitch. RP Thor is the man. So yeah, it was an interesting conversation. So yeah, check it out. Yeah, I believe you can find him if you just look up RP Thor on YouTube. And yeah, it was a good time. We talked about different aspects of leadership that I think for the most part is left out. Because guys are just like, man, I want to be that guy. I want to be the whip cracker, right? I want to have the flogger. I want to have the paddle. I want to be with the one with the whistle. I want to be the one calling out position 13, position 4, and she's just like hitting all these positions like she's popping and locking, but it's like, yeah, it's great, man. But dude, there's a lot of work that goes into that, man. And I'll be interviewing, just a heads up. I think I'm going to head out of here. Heads up on just some of the things that are coming down the pike. So next month, I'm going to be getting with this guy. His name is Master Arcane. I met him just recently, and we had a great phone conversation. He's out in, I think, Los Angeles. And he has a 24/7 slave that he is very much in love with. She's in love with him. They live together. Their families know each other and all that stuff. It's like, it's a real thing, okay? But they have a 24/7 master-slave relationship. And it's super, super organized, okay? Like what I was describing with the like position 13, position 4. And she's like, shifting into different movements, different poses, like a soldier. Okay. But I'm going to have them on, the two of them. Her name's Slave Daphne, and they're just going to be talking about their life. They're going to be talking about what it is to be in a very advanced, because this guy has been at it for decades. Okay. Super knowledgeable about a fuck ton of stuff. Like I really look up to this guy. So I'm going to have them on for a dual interview, just talking about their own experiences from their subjective positions, but what it's like to be in a 24/7 BDSM master-slave relationship, So That's going to be cool. A lot of fun. I'll be announcing it far in advance so that people can, set it up and, but it'll be recorded. So if you miss it, it'll be on the replay. The other thing is I'm getting with some guys doing some webinars coming up. Some big guys in the dating coach scene from London. These guys have been in it for a very long time. And it's interesting, very, very well known internationally, but not very big here in the States, I don't think. But anyways, I'll be doing some webinars with these guys. And then, let's see, I'm working on 3 books. So there's going to be 3 ebooks coming out. So right now there's a free one. It's not this super in-depth ebook. It's more like a quick pamphlet, but it's free. And it's about attraction, I believe, if I remember correctly. And so that can be found on the website, dominanceacademy.com, and you can just go there. It takes you to the download from Gumroad, and you just put in your email, put in 0 in the amounts part. And I don't even think I'm taking donations. And, in a few minutes, you'll get access to the download. And it's just a quick, fun read. But otherwise, I'm working on 3 ebooks, and probably about 12 chapters each, I think. Let's see here. But yeah, there's going to be one about the 25 laws of masculine self-improvement, the 12 chapters of how to be a fantastic lover, and then a 3-part series of the Blueprint of Desire. And this is it's pretty remedial, but it's made for people who just don't know a damn thing, like about how to be attractive, what to look out for, so there's things in there about like understanding body language, a proper mindset of, that you are a valuable person as being a man. I mean, unless you're like, excuse me. So unless you're like a total degenerate, every guy has value. All right. Destroying like introversion, social anxiety, how to deal with rejection, confidence, visualization, how to lead, how to text. So I've got some pretty unique ways to deal with texting. And it's fun watching my guys pick up on it, and they're like, oh, now that you point it out, I can totally see the patterns. And then once they understands my methods of texting, it's almost like they can see when someone's telegraphing. Like if you've ever been like in fighting before, like structured fighting, not street fighting, you learn about telegraphing, and it's sort of like a tell in poker. And telegraphing is when someone gives some sort of indication that they're about to throw a punch or a kick, and you learn their telegraph, and then you can do a preemptive strike or do something to counter them before they even are able to fully release that strike. Okay. So this is like I figured this out, I don't know where along the lines, but how to understand people's tells of like what they're going to do, and then how you can move in and sort of do what you want to do and completely change and redirect, everything that's going on there. What the hell just happened? Oh, weird. I just lost my camera for some reason. All right. I'm going to end the stream here now. I don't know what just happened to my camera, but I appreciate everybody who's come on. And we'll catch you on the replay. Or for those of you, man, that camera thing really threw me off. It just like everything went black on the screen. But anyways, so I appreciate you guys who have come through on the live. And for those of you who have come through on the replay, I appreciate you as well. And, everyone, please share the video. You can like it if you like, and, send it to a friend who you think would enjoy the information. And please go over to thedominanceacademy.com. keep a lookout for new product coming through. I'm working hard, so but it's all for you guys. And these books are not going to be, $70, $80, that sort of stuff. It can be like a good entry. And so, more people can benefit from this. All right, guys, you all have a fantastic weekend. I'll probably be streaming tomorrow. And, we'll see how that goes. But I'll put an announcement out. So until that time, you guys take it easy. Have a good weekend.